Now we can talk to the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is here in the studio. Good to talk to you today. There's been a certain amount of criticism of what the Chancellor's done. A lot of the papers saying that he hasn't gone far enough. But isn't he right to be modest here? We really don't know what is coming down the lane, do we? Inflation could go as high as 10%. Isn't it right to be holding something back?
There's two key takeaways from the spring statement yesterday. The first of all is that the tax burden is now the highest since the 1940s. And even by the end of this Parliament, with the cut in income tax, 7 out of 8 working people will be paying more in taxes, only 1 in 8 will be paying less. And this tax burden is really hitting when the cost of living crisis reaches its crescendo, if you like, because we know inflation already 6.2%, set to rise to close to 9% this year. And to be taking money out of people's pockets at this time goes against common sense, it goes against all the economic evidence, and we're the only major advanced economy that's taking money out of people's pockets at a time when you've got a cost of living crisis like this.
And that's in terms of the increase in national insurance contributions. But the Chancellor will say...
And not just that, because also more people are being pushed into paying income tax because the band at which you start paying income tax has been frozen, and more people then are being dragged into paying a higher rate of income tax as well, because usually that would go up with inflation, but the Chancellor's chosen to freeze it. So more and more people are paying more and more in taxes at a time when the bills are going up and up and up. Something has to give. And for many people on low and modest incomes, there's nothing to give. But even for people working on modest salaries, it is really tough right now when petrol prices, the weekly food shop, and most of all, the gas and electricity bills are just reaching staggering levels.
It is tough, and there's no denying that. But the Chancellor and the government would say it's tough for reasons outside of their control. It's tough because of COVID. It's tough because of what's happening with the war in Ukraine, and we haven't even seen the full impact that that's going to have on our energy prices. These are things that, in all fairness, the Chancellor and the government can't control.
But chancellors have choices of who to tax and who to shield. And the Chancellor has chosen not to ask anything more from North Sea oil and gas companies. I've said that Labour would have introduced a one-off windfall tax on the big profits being made by North Sea oil and gas companies right now. You know, the chief executive of BP said that they've got more money than they know what to do with. He described running the country like it was like a cash machine right now. But the people paying out are ordinary British families. So let's have a one-off windfall tax and use that money to expand the warm homes discount so that the poorest and those on modest incomes get some more help, and also cut VAT on domestic gas and electricity bills to give everybody a bit of money off their bills right now. That was the sort of measure that I would have liked to have seen in the spring statement yesterday.
But there'll be critics who will also say that that doesn't go far enough. If inflation is going up at these extraordinary rates, but incomes aren't, that's the disconnect. I mean, would the Labour Party go further? Would the Labour Party, for example, tie benefits to inflation? Well,
so the package we have announced on energy prices would have taken up to £600 off the bills of around a third of people. So it would have made a big difference. You know, gas and electricity bills are going up by almost £700. We would have taken £600 off people's bills. That is far in excess of anything that the Chancellor has announced, and we could do that because of that windfall tax. You ask about the situation of pensions and benefits. Now, of course, they're supposed to go up in line with inflation, but the problem is that inflation rate that was chosen was last September's inflation. And since then, what's happened to inflation? It hasn't just crept up, it's spiralling out of control. It's already twice that level. So we should go back to doing what is supposed to happen, which is pegging benefits and pensions to inflation. Now, the fact is, because inflation is so high now, and it is likely to be for the rest of the year, next year, pensions and benefits will go up by more. Let's bring forward some of that increase so it helps people right now when they most need that support.
But how far could you go? I mean, if inflation goes up to 10%, would the Labour Party put benefits up 10%? I mean, the bill, it's just eye-watering.
No, because right now, inflation is 6.2%. Next year, when benefits go up, the benefit increase and the pension increase will reflect the inflation that we've experienced this year. So pensions and benefits will eventually get there. It's just too late to help people with their bills now. So what we're saying is bring some of that increase that will happen next year so that people actually get the money in their purses and wallets when they most need it, when bills are going up by 54%. You know, I've got pensioners in my constituency who are saying they don't turn the heating on now, even though they're really cold, because they can't afford it. I've got mums who are saying, I'm skipping meals because the most important thing to me is my kids eat properly. People shouldn't be having to make those impossible decisions. But because of a failure of the Chancellor to act yesterday, more and more people will be making those decisions.
One of the things that he did announce yesterday was the income tax cut and cutting it from 20% to 19% in the future. Is that something you oppose?
Look, this Chancellor says, I believe in lower taxes, but it's a bit like a kid who plays air guitar in his bedroom and thinks he's a rock star. You're not a low-tax Chancellor if you're increasing taxes.
But he is going to decrease them. They are going to go down from 20% to 19%. That's a decrease by anybody's standards.
But let's look at things in the round, because you can't just say that tax is going down, all of these are going up. Overall, by the end of this Parliament, 7 out of 8 working people will be paying more in tax. Only 1 in 8 will be paying less in tax.
But specifically on income tax, do you support it? Do you oppose it? And if so, why not?
I've been very clear that I want to see lower taxes on ordinary working people. That's why Labour would not be doing this national insurance hike now. If this Chancellor really wants to help working people and keep their taxes low, he should have cancelled that national insurance increase yesterday. I want to see lower taxes on working people. The Chancellor should be doing that now when people need it.
But on the specific tax of income tax going down from 20% to 19%, you're not going to oppose it, are you?
Well, look, let's see what happens, because there's no finance bill. It's not in legislation. You know, the Chancellor promise of jam tomorrow is not going to help people pay their bills now. It is all about, it's a game for this Chancellor. He's announcing a tax increase just ahead of the next general election because he's more concerned about the electoral cycle than he is about the inflation cycle and helping people with the cost of living crisis that is hitting now.